Hi, my name is Graham Moss, and this is a little video for the Revs 28th of November session, so I hope you enjoy it. First question people always ask me about this garage is, why are all these cars red? And there's an answer to that, really, as you can imagine, but it was accidental, to be honest. The MGB and Lotus, which I've had from new, the MGB I wanted was going to be in that bright yellow colour, and thank goodness I didn't get it. But there was a Lucas strike, and so the car I got was the red one, and that was it. The Lotus, I was dreaming of a black Lotus Esprit, like a lot of people would at the time, but that didn't happen either, because all there was available in the dealer network was a red car, and that was it. Likewise, some of the older cars, when I bought them, have not been red. The Sprite and the Ginetta, indeed, we're going to look at in detail later, both arrived white, and as soon as I researched the original colours, which I have a penchant for doing, they turned out they were both either deep red or in the case of the Ginetta, tangerine, so they went back. Now, it doesn't always happen like that, because the Alvis was also red, I discovered, in its history, but there's no way a car that large would look any sense. It would look like a fire engine in a red colour, and so we decided against it. And so therefore it's gone along like that. However, having said that, when you're looking at old cars, red was a very popular colour, so more often than not, the ones you look at around the place are indeed red, and that's how it's ended up rather like this. When you're looking at a collection like this, I use them every day during the summer. As soon as the salt is off the road in March, and when the salt comes back on the roads in November, the cars are used every day for part of my work. Even with the lockdown, because I was working all the way through lockdown, and the weather, as you remember, was fantastic. So we put a lot of miles on it. And a lot of miles on a lot of old cars means a lot of things going wrong. So as well as the day-to-day stuff, it's quite difficult at the same time getting on with projects, which is always the fun bit. So this little program is all about projects, and I have 3 at the moment, which is a rather silly thing to do. You're much better off concentrating on one at a time, and that is not including the things that go wrong and turn into major projects themselves with the other vehicles. But the one which is closest to looking like a real car is the little Ginetta G15 here, which we're going to look at in detail later. The others are an MGA Coupe, which I bought off a dear friend of mine and had teased him for 20 years. He bought his at the same time as I got my Roadster. Actually, that was 35 years ago. And I teased him every year how he was getting on with it. And if he didn't get on with it, I'd take it off him. Poor fellow had a health scare a few years ago and said to me, "Are you serious about that you want it? And what could I do after 35 years of teasing him?" So I took it on, and there it was. And the other project sitting back there is an Aston Martin DB4, for which I've got all of the bits are now reconditioned and restored. I do the sub-assemblies, and they've all been put away, ready to put back together. But the current project is the Ginetta G15, and that has been through many hands. I bought it in 1996, and Cottage Classics, who were going at the time, did the first part of the work on it down in Essex. Then it came up here to my dear friend Tony, who has worked on a lot of the cars here. Tony then became ill, and it passed on to Andy Smith, a member of the Ginetta Owners Club, who was a great resource in that he knew all of the people concerned and who was doing what with whom and with what car, so that was very useful. Then the car came back to the garage, and Jonathan Evans has been doing everything since, as indeed he does with everything in the garage. And we are finding with the car that what we thought might have been adequate 15 years ago possibly isn't now, and Jonathan has been involved in substantially re-engineering the car from front to back, quite honestly against my better judgment, because there's nothing more disheartening than restoring a car. Effectively, this will be 4 times and it never being on the road between times. But Jonathan here. Jonathan, what's been the most difficult part of restoring the car?
Try and understand how it's done most of the time.
Because it is a mix of all sorts of bits and pieces.
It's been a mix of Hillman Imp and Triumph and
Yeah.
Ginetta,
And nobody tells you which is which, do they?
no. So we're just trying to find out the best way of doing things.
Yeah.
And the safest way.
Yeah, and you do it by feel, don't you, really? You think,
Yeah.
well, look, I think this looks like an Imp bit, but it might be a Triumph
That's
bit.
it, yeah.
And we look at the parts
We do-
catalogues, don't we? Both.
Do a bit of research online
Yeah.
and all sorts and
Yeah.
see what we can find out.
Yeah, and Jonathan has put his head into this, which needs doing. I mean, honestly, doing effectively what a lot of the time is prototype work, because we're trying to understand how they originally did it. There's not enough of these cars around, are there, that we can see how they're
No.
done. And when we do find them, they're all different, aren't they?
They're all different, got their own touches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people have done a lot of wacky things.
Yeah, the owners have got their own touch, haven't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, they have, and likewise this one, because I think, you know, it's gone a little further than it should have done.
Well, it's the LEDs on this one, it does it?
Yes, we got rather berserk with the interior lights, but a great friend of mine, Bob Johnson, came into the garage. He took one look at the Ginetta and he said, well, that's all very well, but what are you going to put on the other foot? It is tiny when you see it compared to the other cars, absolutely tiny, and I have a worry that when I get in there, I'll never get out. Jonathan here, who is very, very tall, probably would never get out, so he doesn't go anywhere near the inside of it, just in case he has to be surgically removed. Yeah. So Jonathan Evans has worked on all of the cars here. He is fantastic. His background is Morris Minors, and I discovered Jonathan through the Morris Minor world. But as he said about the MGA Coupe he's doing, it's nothing more or less than a flattened Morris Minor. So there are a lot of similarities between all these cars. We find that with the parts you pay more with the badge on it, but often there's quite a lot of common parts between all the cars. And once you've worked on one of these, they're all the same, really,
That's
Jonathan.
it,
aren't
you get down to it, they're all pretty similar.
they? Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
complications really, are there?
No.
Each one has its own little.
Quirks.
Yeah.
They've all got a little quirk somewhere, but you
Yeah.
find a way of getting around that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward stuff.
Pretty straightforward.
But you love it, don't you?
I do.
I mean, you're unusual because Jonathan is incredibly young, and you know, there's not that many people of his age who've got his sort of experience. When you just came to it, did you come through it straight to Morris Minors, or were you?
I started off with Morris Minors, yeah.
Not
Yeah.
tractors. So your Fergie.
Not tractors, Morris Minors.
Because Jonathan has a wonderful grey Fergie that he uses with his sons around the garden, which is incredible. Right, Lucan is the garage dog, and for good or bad, because he's incredibly enthusiastic. He's very much into security in here, and also he helps Jonathan substantially. The only trouble is, he farts like crazy, and if Jonathan is in the pit, one of those farts can leave him legless for a while. Poor Jonathan's almost certainly suffered brain damage as a consequence, but without fail, Lucan comes in, say hello, and then lays one on him.